feed from the Hospital Radio Network. I'm at Bletchley Park, home of the Codebreakers, for the launch of something called GB1 NHS. I'm talking to someone who could hopefully tell us a little more about the campaign. Your name, please?
Hello there, my name is Tim Gillatt and I work for the Emergency Care Improvement Programme, part of the NHS.
And you're talking to us today about EndPJparalysis. Just tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
A couple of years ago now, I met a great guy called Brian Dolan, Professor of Nursing, and he was speaking at an event I was at. And Brian was talking about the value of patient time. Now, patient time is so important to us in the NHS and in healthcare in a wider scale, and how sometimes we can waste some of that time for patients. So at that time I was working with Nottingham University Hospitals, and I suggested that they invite Brian to come and talk to some of the nursing teams and therapy teams and doctors there. So Brian came along perhaps just under 2 years ago to Nottingham. There was a room full of nurses and therapists and doctors, and Brian talked about the last 1,000 days of people's lives and how many of our patients in hospital are in the last 1,000 days of their life. And he posed a really interesting question to the room, which was, if you were told that you were in the last 1,000 days of your life, how many of those days would you choose to spend in hospital when you didn't really need to be there? But one of the sisters from the hospital in Nottingham there said, on my ward, we're going to try to get patients who can and want to up and dressed every day. Sometimes, when an idea hits you, the simplicity of it can really just knock you back, can't it? And that's a moment I think I'll always remember. To that nurse, this wasn't a great idea, it wasn't a big idea. To many people listening, it sounds very basic and very simple. But sometimes over time, these ideas get lost. And the way that this nurse restated that idea and said, this is something we're going to do, really struck us all. And it struck everybody in the room. And after that, Brian and I were exchanging tweets on Twitter, and Brian coined this phrase, #EndPJparalysis. It was not a new idea. Evidence has been around for this since the 1940s, and it's been a passion of Brian's, and he really is our kind of guru around developing this idea. But we just started this little Twitter conversation. Our colleagues joined in. There were 4 of us then. So there was Brian, my colleague Pete, Anne-Marie from Nottingham Hospitals, and myself, and just started playing around with this idea without really expecting anything to happen. But over the course of the last 18 months, people have really picked up on this hashtag. And I think it's so exciting, and it's been a real example of what we would now call a social movement, where people just pick up on an idea and really go with it, rather than it being a top-down, you must do this, you must do that. It's an idea that's really resonated with clinical teams across the UK and beyond, to the point where we are now, where we've got this national campaign and so many people spreading the messages. I go to hospitals up and down the country now. I'm very fortunate at that in part of my job. And I'll go on wards most weeks, and most wards I go on now, we've got posters up around #EndPJparalysis. You look in the bays and you've got patients up and dressed and moving around in a way that might not have happened prior to the campaign. So it's something I've been very fortunate to be involved.
Now, I see this is a 70-day campaign. Does it all stop after those 70 days?
No, it certainly doesn't. This is really to celebrate the 70th anniversary of NHS. We're having a particular push on this. The campaign, in reality, has been going since that first kernel of an idea, which was around October 2016. And we're hopeful and confident, because it has been taken on so well by clinical teams and by families and by patients, that this will become self-sustaining and becoming the way of working in the NHS. And hopefully, being dressed when you can, being up and active, will become the norm in our hospitals rather than being in bed during the day.
Absolutely. Tim, thank you very much. Best of luck with the campaign, and thanks for talking to us on Hospital Radio.
Thank you very much.